Space was silent. Too silent. The alien exploration fleet moved slowly through the dead sector. Their mission was simple: map empty regions, search for minerals, and report back. Nothing interesting ever happened here. Until today. Commander Zeltor stood on the bridge of his flagship, eyes fixed on the giant viewing screen. At first, he thought it was just a shadow near the dying red star. But as the ship drifted closer, the shadow turned into something real. Something huge. It was a ship. A massive, ancient ship. Its hull floated in darkness, covered with scars from battles older than anyone could remember. Entire sections were torn apart, yet the vessel still held together like a sleeping beast refusing to die. "Is it in our records?" the commander asked, his voice calm but his heart's beating faster. The science officer checked the database. After a moment, he shook his head. "No record, Commander. Not in our Empire's history. Not in any known archive. This ship doesn't exist." That was impossible. The Galactic Archives held the designs of every ship built in the last 12,000 years. Civilizations had risen and fallen, but records always survived. And yet here was a warship bigger than any modern dreadnought, completely unknown. Zeltor's eyes narrowed. "Scan it." Blue lights swept over the ship. More strange readings appeared. The vessel was older than the Empire itself. Maybe older than the Empire's oldest enemies. The metal was like nothing they had seen before. Dense, layered, built for war beyond imagination. But one reading froze everyone on the bridge. "Commander," the officer said slowly, "there is power running inside. After all these centuries, the ship is still alive." A quiet fear settled over the crew. "No crew?" someone asked. "No movement detected," the officer replied. "But energy signatures are coming from the center of the ship. Strong ones." The camera zoomed in on the hull. Strange symbols were burned into the metal. The translation system struggled for a long moment before finally producing a name. The Relentless. The word rolled across the bridge like thunder. Even in translation, it carried weight. It spoke of war, of battles fought without mercy, of soldiers who never surrendered. The science officer's voice shook with excitement. "Commander, the technology on this ship could change everything. Weapons, shields, engines. Who knows what secrets it holds?" Another officer growled softly. "Or maybe it holds death. Some things are buried for a reason." The debate grew louder. Some wanted to claim the ship for the Empire. Others wanted to leave it alone, burn the coordinates, and pretend they never saw it. But Zeltor wasn't listening anymore. His eyes stayed locked on the ancient vessel, drifting like a corpse near the dying sun. Something about it felt wrong. A warship this big, this powerful, this old, left behind with no record, no history, no owner. It was like finding a loaded weapon lying in the middle of a child's playground. "Send in a drone," he ordered at last. The small probe flew toward the warship. Its lights cut through the darkness as it entered a massive hangar bay. The metal walls bore scars from energy blasts. Something terrible had happened here long ago. Inside, the drone found corridors large enough for walking giants. Shattered consoles lined the walls. Old weapons, long dead, hung in racks like skeletons waiting for war. And then the drone reached the central chamber. The camera feed made the entire bridge go silent. There were pods. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Each pod was sealed tight. Each one carried faint energy readings. The science officer's hands shook as he read the data. "Commander, there are life signs inside." The words hung in the air like a curse. "Alive. After thousands of years." The camera zoomed closer to one pod. Through the thick glass, a shape was visible. A figure. Humanoid. Armored. Sleeping. Waiting. The commander felt cold sweat running down his neck. What kind of war had needed soldiers like these? A war so big, so terrible, that entire civilizations had erased its memory? The drone's lights flickered as it scanned deeper. Some of the pods carried markings. Symbols of rank, of battles fought, of victories carved into metal. Others carried weapons so old that even the Empire's oldest historians wouldn't recognize them. The science officer whispered, If they wake up, will they see us as friend or enemy? No one answered. The drone's feed showed one final image before the signal cut out. At the center of the chamber stood a single massive pod, bigger than the rest. On it, written in the same ancient language, was a title: Supreme Commander of the Human Forces. The bridge crew froze. Human. It was a word from legends. A species wiped out long ago. A species said to have burned half the galaxy in its last war before vanishing forever. And now, here was their warship, their soldiers, their commander, sleeping, waiting. Commander Zeltor suddenly felt very small, because some things were not meant to be found. And this was one of them. The alien fleet floated in silence, its ships surrounding the ancient warship like insects circling a sleeping beast. On the flagship's bridge, Commander Zeltor kept his eyes on the screen. The image of the giant vessel, the Relentless, filled the display. It had been drifting for thousands of years, yet its power still pulsed faintly, like a dying heartbeat refusing to stop. And inside were soldiers, humans. The word felt heavy every time someone said it. It came from ancient records, from myths told in whispers. A species that once shook the galaxy with war so terrible that even empires had erased its name from history out of fear. Some said they were demons in flesh. Others claimed they were the greatest warriors to ever live. Now here they were, asleep in frozen pods, waiting in the dark. The science officer broke the silence. His voice trembled, but excitement glimmered in his eyes. Commander, we must study them. Their technology, their biology, their weapons. This could change everything for the Empire. Another officer slammed his fist on the console. Or it could doom us all. You saw the records. The humans destroyed entire star systems in their wars. They fought until only they were left standing. Arguments erupted across the bridge, voices rising, fear mixing with ambition. Some wanted to claim the ship, awaken the soldiers, use their power. Others wanted to leave this place and erase all evidence before it was too late. Zeltor raised a hand. Silence returned. He turned to the science officer. Can you wake one safely? The officer hesitated. Yes, but I don't know what will happen when we do. The commander's 4 eyes stayed fixed on the sleeping warship. He had seen empires fall because of reckless curiosity. But he had also seen them rise because someone took a risk. And this was the greatest discovery in galactic history. Do it, he ordered at last. The science team sent a small craft carrying drones toward the Relentless. The drones slipped inside through the same hangar bay as before, their lights cutting through the darkness of the giant ship. The camera feeds showed the frozen pods again, row after row of silent soldiers waiting in the cold. The drones moved toward the nearest one. The pod was covered in strange markings. Warnings, maybe, or prayers. No one knew. The drones began melting the ice around the pod. Slowly, the frost cleared. The face inside became visible. A human. The features were sharp, hard, carved by war and time. Even in sleep, the soldier's expression carried the weight of battles fought long ago. The moment the ice was gone, the pod systems came alive. Lights flickered. Alarms beeped softly. Energy readings spiked. And then, the soldier's eyes snapped open. They glowed faintly in the darkness. Cold, calculating, alive after centuries. The alien science team froze. No one spoke. No one breathed. The human's gaze moved slowly, taking in the strange figures standing around him. Aliens with shining skin, multiple eyes, long limbs. Species that did not exist when he had closed his eyes ages ago. His mouth moved. The words came out harsh, deep, full of command. The translator struggled before finally producing a broken version. Where is the enemy? The science officer stepped forward nervously. There is no enemy. The war is over. You have been asleep for a very long time. The human stared at him, unblinking. Then he looked around at the other pods. His hand moved to the controls on the side of his pod. The aliens watched in growing fear as more pods began to power up. Lights blinked. Systems hummed. One by one, the soldiers inside began to stir. The science officer panicked. "Commander, they are waking themselves. We didn't do this." Zeltor felt his heart's pound in his chest. This was not the plan. They had wanted one soldier. Just one. But the soldiers of the Relentless had other ideas. One by one, armored figures stepped out of their pods. Their movements were sharp, disciplined, like soldiers ready for war. Weapons lined the walls untouched for centuries. Yet when the humans picked them up, the weapons powered on as if time itself obeyed them. The first soldier, the one they had awakened, spoke again. The translation was clearer this time. "Report. Status. Enemy fleets." The aliens stammered. There are no enemy fleets. The galaxy is at peace." The human's eyes narrowed. "Peace," he repeated softly, as if tasting the word for the first time. Then he looked at the alien science team. "And who," he asked slowly, "controls the galaxy now?" No one answered, because in that moment, every alien in the room realized something with cold horror. The soldiers of the Relentless did not wake up to serve anyone. They woke up because the war, in their minds, had never ended. The soldiers of the Relentless stood in silence. Their armor was old yet untouched by time, shining faintly in the dim lights of the ancient warship. Weapons hummed in their hands as if the centuries had meant nothing. On the alien flagship, Commander Zeltor watched through the drone feed, his 4 eyes fixed on the humans. His crew stayed frozen, afraid even to breathe too loud. The human leader, tall and broad-shouldered, studied the room like a wolf entering new territory. His eyes, cold and sharp, moved from one alien to another. Finally, he spoke. "Status. Enemy fleets. Reports." The translator repeated in a flat voice. The alien science officer swallowed hard before answering. "The war ended centuries ago. There are no enemy fleets. You have been asleep for a very long time." The human's expression did not change. He walked to the center of the chamber where the main console stood, his heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. His hand hovered above the controls. The console came alive the moment he touched it. It was as if the ship had been waiting for him. Holograms filled the air. Maps of old star systems, battle lines, enemy fleet positions, all from a war so old that even the oldest alien records carried no trace of it. The aliens watched, stunned. It was a war bigger than anything they had imagined. Entire star systems burned. Fleets the size of moons clashed in battles that lasted weeks. The enemy forces were monstrous, made of species that no longer existed. And at the center of it all, humanity. The humans fought with weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Planet-cracking cannons. Stealth fleets that appeared from nowhere. Soldiers who fought like machines, never surrendering, never retreating. Zeltor felt his heart sink as he saw the holograms. No wonder the galaxy had erased this history. No empire wanted to remember a war this terrifying or a species like this. The human leader turned to his soldiers. They stood in perfect silence, waiting for orders like statues of war gods. "Enemy destroyed?" one soldier asked in a cold, metallic voice. The leader's jaw tightened. His eyes scanned the alien science team as if searching for the truth in their faces. "Yes," the science officer said quickly. "The enemy is gone. Centuries ago. Your war is over." But even as he said it, his voice trembled. Because the humans didn't look relieved. They looked angry. The leader turned back to the holograms, bringing up battle reports, weapon logs, command signals. The aliens saw names of fleets, codes for weapons, victory counts that made no sense. One report stood out, the siege of Blackstar Gate. It showed humanity's final battle. Enemy forces numbering in the millions. Human fleets outnumbered 10 to 1. And yet, humanity won. The last message in the report was clear. We will not stop. We will never stop. Not until the enemy is ash. The alien crew watching through the feed felt a cold fear creeping in. These soldiers had not fought for survival alone. They had fought for total victory, for absolute destruction of anyone who stood against them. The science officer whispered, almost to himself, "What kind of species fights like this?" No one answered. The human leader finally turned to the aliens. his face hard as stone. "Who rules the galaxy now?" he asked again, his voice calm but sharp like a blade. The science officer hesitated. "There is no single ruler. Many empires, many councils." The leader's eyes narrowed. He spoke to his soldiers in the old human language. The translator struggled but caught a few words. Disorder, weakness, fractured rule. The soldiers nodded slowly, as if this was expected. The leader looked at the aliens one last time. "Bring your commander. We will speak." On the flagship, Zeltor felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Commander," the science officer said nervously, They want you to meet them." Zeltor stared at the feed, at the soldiers awakening one by one, at the warship coming back to life, systems humming as if eager for orders. This was no simple relic, no harmless piece of history. This was a war machine, a species built for battle, and they had just awakened it. The alien flagship moved closer to the Relentless, its engines humming softly in the endless dark. Inside the alien bridge, Commander Zeltor prepared to cross over and meet the soldiers of a species that had once burned half the galaxy. His crew whispered in fear. No one liked this idea. "Commander," the science officer said nervously, "these soldiers, they don't follow us. They don't fear us. I don't think they obey anyone but themselves." Zeltor adjusted his armor. "If they wanted to kill us, they would have done it already," he said. "Maybe they just want answers." But deep inside, even Zeltor wasn't sure. A small shuttle carried him across the void to the sleeping giant. The moment he stepped into the warship, the air felt different, thicker, heavier, like stepping into a battlefield that had never truly ended. Rows of human soldiers stood in silence, their weapons across their chests. Their eyes followed him as he walked toward the center chamber. At the center, waiting like a king on his throne, stood the human leader. His armor bore scars of ancient battles, his face carved from war itself. He didn't speak right away. He only studied the alien commander the way a predator studies unfamiliar prey. Finally, he spoke. "You are leader?" the translator asked in its flat voice. "Yes," Zeltor said, his own voice steady though his heart's pounded. "I command this fleet." The human nodded slowly, then turned to the holograms showing the galaxy's current map. "So many empires, so many flags," he said coldly. "But none belong to humanity." Zeltor hesitated. "Your kind vanished long ago. We believed you were extinct." The human's eyes hardened. "We do not vanish. We endure." The words carried weight, like iron chains dropping onto the floor. Zeltor felt unease creeping in. This was not a soldier happy to find peace. This was a soldier searching for the next war. He tried diplomacy. "The galaxy has changed. There is peace now. Trade. Councils. No need for war anymore." The human leader stared at him as if he had spoken nonsense. "Peace," he repeated, the word bitter on his tongue. He turned to his soldiers and spoke in the old human language. The translator caught pieces. Soft, weak, not ready. Zeltor didn't like the sound of that. One alien officer, nervous and impatient, made the mistake. He stepped forward and touched one of the ancient weapons resting on the wall. "Careful," the science officer hissed. "Don't touch anything." But it was too late. The weapon, long silent for centuries, came alive at the alien's touch. Energy flared along its surface. A low hum filled the chamber like the growl of a waking beast. The human soldiers moved instantly. Two of them grabbed the alien officer, slamming him against the wall with strength far beyond anything Zeltor had seen before. The officer cried out in shock. "Stop!" Zeltor shouted. He meant no harm, but the human leader had drawn his own weapon, a blade glowing with faint blue energy. He placed it at the alien's throat. The entire alien escort froze. The human leader's eyes burned like cold fire. "No one touches our weapons," the translator said in a dead voice. Zeltor raised his hands slowly. It was a mistake. He didn't understand. The human stared at him for a long moment before lowering the blade. With a harsh order in his language, He shoved the alien officer toward his companions. The message was clear. One more mistake and someone dies. The human leader spoke again, his voice like steel. This ship, this fleet, is ours. Not yours. Not your empire's. Ours. Zeltor nodded carefully. We only wish to talk. To learn. But the human didn't look convinced. His soldiers returned to their positions, silent, watchful, like predators guarding territory. As Zeltor left the warship hours later, he felt the weight of what had just happened. One careless touch, one wrong move, and the humans had almost killed them all. Back on his flagship, he gave a quiet order. No one provokes them again. No one. But deep inside, he knew something terrifying. It was only a matter of time before someone made another mistake. And next time, the humans might not stop at warnings. The alien fleet stayed close to the Relentless, but no one dared to enter again without permission. The first mistake had shown everyone one simple truth. The humans were awake now, and they were dangerous. On the ancient warship, the soldiers moved like ghosts through the corridors. Lights flickered to life wherever they walked. Systems that had slept for centuries began humming softly, as if the ship itself was stretching after a long, deep sleep. Commander Zeltor watched from his flagship, unease growing in his chest. These soldiers, the science officer said quietly, they are not like us. They fight like no other species ever fought. They obey no one except their leader. Zeltor nodded slowly. They were made for war, and only war. On the warship, the human leader stood at the center command console. His soldiers gathered around him, silent and waiting. With a single motion, he activated the ship's core systems. Engines older than entire empires roared back to life. Shields powered up. Weapons charged. It was as if time itself bowed to their return. The aliens watching from orbit felt a chill. This was no ordinary vessel. It was a war machine designed for battles that had burned galaxies long before their civilizations were born. The human leader spoke in his harsh, clipped language. The translator caught the words. Check all systems. Prepare for movement. Prepare for war. The soldiers spread out across the ship, their steps heavy, precise, disciplined. Some went to weapons control. Others moved to engineering bays. A few entered training halls. Massive rooms with strange machines that came alive as soon as they stepped inside. The aliens couldn't believe what they saw next. The soldiers began training. After sleeping for centuries, they fought practice battles with terrifying skill. Blades flashed. Energy rifles fired at moving targets. Heavy exosuits clashed in hand-to-hand combat drills. Each strike, each shot, each movement was perfect. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They train like the war never ended. One alien officer whispered in fear. Zeltor said nothing. He couldn't stop watching. These soldiers were not coming back to life slowly. They were preparing as if they expected battle any moment. And maybe they did. Hours passed. The humans repaired what was broken, restored what was silent, armed what was empty. Bit by bit, the Relentless was no longer a ghost drifting in space. It was a living weapon again. Finally, the human leader stood before a massive viewing screen that showed the galaxy map. His cold eyes traced the positions of modern empires, star systems, trade routes, and fleets. Fragmented, he muttered. Weak. The translator carried his words to the aliens listening on the other side. One alien counselor, patched in through long-range communication, tried to speak diplomatically. You have awakened in a new age. There is no need for war anymore. The galaxy lives in peace. The human leader turned slowly toward the camera. Peace, he said softly, almost like a threat. The counselor faltered. Why yes, peace between the empires. Trade, alliances, councils. The human cut him off. Peace exists only when enemies are ash. The room fell silent. Another counselor whispered nervously, Commander Zeltor, they are not like us. They don't understand diplomacy. But Zeltor said nothing, because deep down he knew the truth. The humans understood diplomacy. They just didn't care. On the warship, the soldiers stood lined in perfect ranks. Their leader addressed them in the ancient tongue. The translator struggled but captured pieces. Rebuild, reclaim, prepare for return. One alien officer gasped. Return? Return where? The science officer swallowed hard. To their homeworld, to Earth. The alien council went pale. Humanity's homeworld was a myth now, a planet lost to time and dust. If these soldiers found it, no one knew what would happen next. The human leader finally spoke to the aliens directly. His voice was low, but every word carried the weight of command. "We are leaving this system," the translator said. "Do not follow." The alien counselor tried to protest. "You cannot just." But the human leader cut the channel. In the next moment, the Relentless turned slowly toward the stars. Its engines glowed brighter than suns. The alien fleets moved back quickly, afraid to get too close. The warship's shields shimmered like a wall of light. Its weapons stayed locked, ready to fire if anyone dared to stop them. Zeltor watched as the ship began to move. Silent, cold, purposeful, like a predator waking after 1,000 years of sleep. And deep in his hearts, Zeltor knew one thing with absolute certainty. The humans were not done. Not with the galaxy. Not with anyone. The Relentless moved through space like a silent beast waking after 1,000 years of sleep. Its dark hull carried scars from wars long forgotten, but now it shined with power as systems roared back to life. Every empire in the galaxy saw it on their scanners, and every empire felt fear. On a dozen worlds, councils gathered in panic. Leaders stared at the reports in disbelief. Human warship detected. One report read, size, unknown. Power, unmatched. Destination, unknown. The name spread across the galaxy like a storm, the Relentless. The ship that shouldn't exist. The soldiers who shouldn't be alive. The species that history had erased, but who had now returned. On the alien flagship following at a safe distance, Commander Zeltor felt his stomach twist. He had seen many battles in his life. He had faced pirates, rebels, and rival empires. But nothing felt like this. He stood on the bridge, watching the giant warship move ahead of them like a predator ignoring the lesser creatures behind it. "Commander," the science officer said softly, "do you feel it?" "Feel what?" Zeltor asked. "The weight," the officer whispered. "Like the galaxy itself is holding its breath." Zeltor said nothing because he felt it too. The humans weren't moving like survivors looking for peace. They were moving like conquerors studying their next battlefield. On the Relentless, the human leader stood before the main viewing screen. His soldiers reported system statuses in the old human language. All weapons operational. Engines at full power. Shields restored. Cryopods secure. He nodded once. "Good. Begin long-range scans. I want to know everything about this galaxy. Every fleet. Every empire. Every world." The soldiers obeyed without question. Their discipline was perfect, cold, unshaken by time. Soon, holograms filled the command center. Modern star maps, trade routes, capital worlds, defense grids. The human leader studied them with quiet intensity. To him, the galaxy didn't look peaceful. It looked weak. Too many empires. Too many councils. Too many rulers fighting over scraps of power. One soldier spoke softly. "Commander, humanity's world. Earth. Its location." The leader stared at the maps for a long moment before answering. "We find it," he said. "We rebuild." And then, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The soldiers understood. On dozens of alien worlds, governments panicked. Some wanted to open communication with the humans. Others wanted to prepare fleets just in case. A few even whispered about destroying the warship before it grew too powerful. But no one dared to attack first. Because every report said the same thing. The Relentless carried weapons no one understood. Its shields were stronger than anything modern fleets used. Its soldiers were faster, deadlier, more disciplined than any army alive today. And worst of all, the humans didn't talk much. They didn't threaten. They didn't explain. They simply moved forward, silent and unstoppable. On the alien flagship, some officers begged Commander Zeltor to return home. "We shouldn't follow them," one said. "If they see us as a threat, they will destroy us." Another shook his head. "If we let them disappear into the galaxy, we may never control what happens next. Better to watch them, learn what they want." Zeltor listened in silence. He knew they were both right, but he also knew something else. This warship, this species, wasn't just looking for its homeworld. It was looking at the whole galaxy like a wolf looks at a herd of prey. Inside the Relentless, the soldiers prepared for more than just travel. They ran battle simulations in the training halls. They tested weapons that could burn cities from orbit. They studied the galaxy's modern languages, learning fast, adapting faster. One soldier reported to the commander, "Enemy forces in this age weaker than before." The leader nodded slowly. "Then if war comes, it will not last long." His voice was calm, too calm, like someone stating the weather, not a threat. Finally, the warship changed course. The engines flared bright as stars. The new heading appeared on screens across the galaxy. It pointed toward the center worlds, the heart of the strongest empires. Panic spread instantly. Fleets scrambled. Councils shouted over each other. Some wanted peace talks. Others wanted war plans. But across every world, one feeling grew stronger than all others. Fear. Because no one could stop thinking the same thing. If this was just one ship, how many more were still out there? The Relentless cut through the darkness of space like a blade. Its engines glowed bright blue, leaving streaks of light behind. Systems that had slept for centuries now worked at full power. The galaxy watched as the warship moved toward the center worlds, where the richest empires lived, where the most powerful fleets stood guard. But no one tried to stop it. Not yet. Inside the alien council chambers across many worlds, leaders argued in panic. "They are moving straight toward the core systems," one shouted. "What do they want?" Another slammed his fist on the table. "You saw the reports. Their weapons are older than our empires but far stronger. If they attack, our fleets will fall in hours." Some leaders wanted to send diplomats. Others wanted to prepare armies. But no one agreed on anything. Fear made them slow, divided, weak. And above them all, the Relentless kept moving. On the alien flagship following at a safe distance, Commander Zeltor felt his heart's pound. His crew worked in silence. No one dared speak too loud, as if afraid the humans might hear across the void. "Commander," the science officer said softly, "what if they are heading to Earth?" Zeltor's eyes narrowed. "If they find their homeworld, the balance of the galaxy will change forever, because a warship this powerful was dangerous enough. But an entire species returning from extinction? That would shake the stars themselves." Inside the Relentless, the human leader stood before the great viewing screen. Maps of the galaxy floated around him in glowing light. His soldiers waited silently, rows of armor shining under the dim glow of the warship's lights. One soldier reported, "Long-range scans complete. Core systems mapped. Earth coordinates unknown." The leader's eyes stayed cold. "We find it. We rebuild. Then we decide the fate of this galaxy." His words echoed through the command deck like falling stones. The soldiers didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They simply nodded. Perfect discipline. Perfect obedience. It wasn't emotion that drove them. It was purpose. Across the galaxy, fleets prepared quietly. Dozens of empires armed ships, deployed defense grids, and positioned weapons near capital worlds. But deep down, they knew the truth. Their fleets were modern. Their technology was advanced. But everything they had seen about the Relentless told them one thing. This warship came from a time when war was bigger, bloodier, and far more brutal than anything the galaxy had known in thousands of years. If the humans decided to fight, no one believed they could win. The Alien Council finally sent a message. "This is the Galactic Council," the voice said carefully. "Human commander, state your purpose. Are you seeking peace or war?" The human leader appeared on their screens. His armor was battle-scarred, his face cold as stone. "We seek our home," he said simply. "We seek Earth." "And after that?" the council asked nervously. The human's eyes narrowed. "After that, we decide if this galaxy is worthy of peace." The council chambers erupted in panic after the message ended. Back on the Relentless, the soldiers prepared for landing drills. Dropships powered up, weapons were checked, shields tested. It didn't matter if they found Earth today or tomorrow. They were ready for anything. The human leader stood at the center of the command deck, looking out at the stars. Once, long ago, this galaxy had feared humanity. Then history had buried them, called them extinct, forgotten them like dust on old bookshelves. But now they were awake again, and the galaxy trembled. Commander Zeltor watched from his flagship as the Relentless turned slowly, engines blazing, weapons glowing faintly along its massive hull. "Where are they going?" one officer whispered. Zeltor didn't answer right away. His 4 eyes stayed locked on the giant warship as it accelerated toward unexplored space. Finally, he spoke in a low, heavy voice. "They're going to find Earth," he said. "And when they do, the galaxy will never be the same." No one on the bridge spoke after that, because they all knew the truth. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The age of humanity was about to rise again.